This is a campaign that is bringing millions of people into the political process.
My name is Nikhil Goyal, and I'm here with The Nation magazine with Dr. Jane Sanders. It's just a beautiful evening right here in Long Island City in Queens. And we're here to talk about progressive education and K-12 schooling. So thanks so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
So talk to me a little about your childhood growing up in Brooklyn. I know one of the things that Bernie's talked about in his interviews is the amount of unstructured, unsupervised learning and play that was happening.
Yeah, it was great growing up in Brooklyn. I mean, the neighborhood was the street. And so everybody would get together after school, and somebody would sit out on a stoop, and then 5 other people and 10 other people would come out. Get a game of stickball or stoop ball or dodgeball. It all revolved around a Spalding or a basketball or dodgeball.
Absolutely.
So we had fun. It was excellent because nobody was telling us what to do. We did what we felt like doing at the moment. We had to figure out on our own if there was any dispute of any sort. We worked it out as a group.
Great.
I think it was really a good upbringing.
Absolutely. Yeah. How would you describe progressive education?
I would describe that as, pretty much under John Dewey.
Right.
Just having the students have more of a say in what it is that they want to learn. So that you might be studying philosophy, or you might be studying math, or you might be studying English, but you're learning about what your passion is.
Right.
And instead of having there be a prescribed set of study that has a person conveying that knowledge to you, that the teacher, the professor, is a facilitator to try to meet your needs and to get you thinking critically, writing clearly, communicating effectively.
Right. And it seems to me that progressive education is essentially the antithesis of traditional schooling and what we see in most conventional schools. Under a President Sanders administration, and how would a Department of Education function? What would be the contrasting to what we've seen in the past couple of decades with a lot of standardized testing and very much so corporate education reform?
Yeah, we'd be going in exactly the opposite direction. No Child Left Behind was a disaster. We really don't believe in standardized testing.
Okay.
I think our purpose would be, and so does Bernie, schooling is meant to help people be creative, to have their curiosity stimulated, and have them be actively thinking about whatever they're thinking about, whether it's the stars, the universe, climate change, anything, but having them be able to feel they can explore anything, learn anything.
And so talk to me a little about, Bernie Sanders, he, as part of the Every Student Succeeds Act, President Obama passed and signed in December, one of the things he was advocating for was moving away from standardized testing and towards portfolio-based assessment.
Yes.
Can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Well, it's interesting because we've made progress with IEPs, independent educational plans for people with disabilities or students that need extra help. I think every student should have an individualized educational plan.
Why should it only be for just the special education kids?
Absolutely, because you want to learn about who is this person. As a parent, I had these kids and I didn't know who they were, and I wasn't molding them to be me or my husband. What we wanted to do was find out who are they, what are their interests, what are their abilities, what are their talents, and I think we need to do that in our schools.
And one of the things that's been a major critique of public schooling in the past decade is the corporate education reform movement. And Bernie's come in support of the Chicago Teachers Union and some of the, against school closures and the high-stakes standardized testing. What do you think about that movement? Because it seems to me that, Bernie's talking about the billionaires buying the election process and the economy, and in education it seems to me like with Bill Gates and the Waltons and Eli Broad are also doing many of the same things, just with charter schools and high-stakes testing.
I think that some of them, like Bill and Melinda Gates, have very pure motives. They really want to help, and I think that they should be part of the discussion. I really do. But I don't think that we agree with the Chicago teachers. We also, I'm a firm believer that people should be able to have second careers as teachers, as long as they go through the same kind of process that teachers do. I think one of the things that I would like to see happen is in higher education, have the training for the teachers be more open and let the curriculum it varies depending on where you go to school.
Right,
Some
right.
schools are fantastic
Yeah.
to teach student teachers how to teach.
Right, right.
Yes.
One of my final questions is looking at teachers' unions. We have, I mean, AFT and NEA, they endorse Hillary Clinton, but I've seen that in the rank and file, I mean, a large portion of them support Bernie because
Yes.
he's talking about the major issues that affect them in the classroom. And obviously one of the common phrases is teachers' working conditions or
Yeah.
students' learning conditions. What do you think of the role of teachers' unions in these struggles for educational justice?
We're very strong supporters of unions, whether they support him or not.
Right.
We know, as you say, I mean, the unions that poll their members
Right.
vote for
They vote for
Bernie.
Bernie.
They support
They support Bernie, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that teachers' unions are extremely important. I think that parents need to be involved. One of the things that's happening is that there's not enough community building.
Right.
You know, where everybody sits down, as we did at Goddard. You sit down and you come to a consensus or an agreement, if
Right.
not consensus,
Right.
to be able to say, to talk. You know, I mean, it's a problem that we're having in politics, we're having in union negotiations, and in education, that there's power and they fight and they're partisan. I don't know.
Right.
I think I have an idealistic point of view
Yeah.
in that sense. But,
Absolutely. And if I may ask, who do you think are some of your most influential heroes in education? Who are the people you've most been inspired by in your scholarly work in the past many decades?
Dewey,
John Dewey, yeah.
Kilpatrick, Robert Coles, you know, I mean, there are a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things that I like are the people that learn, you know, people who focus on philosophy as
Right.
the underpinning
Like
of
Montessori,
their work. Yeah,
Dewey,
Montessori, of course.
Dewey,
Yeah,
Rudolf Steiner, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that was emerging in the 1960s, and Bernie wrote about this a little bit, is the free school movement.
Yes.
And I'm curious, has that affected you in any way? Did those writings change your vision on education at all?
Well, I was a strong supporter of Montessori
Right,
when
okay.
the kids were very little.
Right.
I homeschooled for
Okay.
a year.
Yeah.
And we did public school all the way through
Okay.
for the kids.
Right.
I went to Catholic and public school depending on where I lived. And I think that education is something that it takes place in the classroom. It's
Right.
all up to that teacher. We should be respecting and trumping. No, that's a terrible word.
Now it is.
We should be respecting and really rewarding and,
Right.
and
We should pay them at very
teaching.
high rates, salaries.
We
Right.
should pay them higher salaries,
right.
but we also should be respecting them as
Right.
as doing the most important work in the world.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'd like to do, if I had the option, would be to, and we're doing it anyway, is look at all the different models of education all over the world. I mean, like anybody who has a teenager knows that they don't like to sit in a classroom and be lectured.
They're very bored and disengaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but what they do like is they want to play a meaningful role. They want to be a part of their community.
Right.
And we keep them out in every respect. We keep them isolated in school. They can't get jobs because there are no jobs, and they don't feel needed. So in Switzerland, for instance, they have a program that is it's throughout their school system where
Yeah.
they have apprenticeships.
Right.
So that students go to school and they learn things, but they also, a few days a week, they go out to work.
Right.
And they learn theory and practice, and they feel that they are involved in the community and they're respected. They have different relationships with people outside. I think
It's
that
hands-on learning.
Yeah, hands-on
it's
learning.
really bridging the gap between the community and the classroom. So they're
I am
much
an
more
experiential learner.
You're experiential
Yes,
learner.
that is my bias.
That's great, great. And I mean, if you were in a position where Bernie's elected president, what do you think your role would be as First Lady, and especially because you're an educator and you seem very passionate about this subject?
I think what I do is try to do the research, find out what's happening around the world, what's really working,
Right.
bring it back, not as okay, we should do this, but bring it back to the teachers and the principals and
Not the hedge fund
educators,
managers.
and ask them what's going on,
Right.
and what do you think about this idea, and how might we make it American, how might we do this, and have the students and the parents be part of that conversation. So I see my overall role, if I had the honor, would be listening to the voices both here in America that are not being heard and putting them out there for people to hear, but also researching and learning some of the best practices everywhere else, and then bringing them back here and letting them be heard as well.
Great.
So kind of a megaphone.
Very interesting.